I miss my wife, my kids. I don't know what I'm doing.
Time is relative. Sometimes it seems like a minute goes by in only a matter of seconds, or an hour might seem like it passes in just tens of minutes. Sometimes what we are doing or who we are with can affect our perception of time. Or sometimes it's what you're wearing. Last year, I decided to test out for myself just what it would be like to spend 365 days, also known as a full year, in virtual reality. I would be free from responsibilities, free from all the things that affect our mood in the real world. No more politics, no more fake smiles at work, no more picking up the kids from school. Just me and a world that only concerns me. The only responsibilities I'll have are whatever virtual pets I may have in Minecraft VR, or learning to become a great musician in Beat Saber. I first decided to do this when I was coming home from my job on a Tuesday. I'll admit I had had a pretty bad day with coworkers and customers, and I get a call from my wife asking if I could pick up some cereal, because we were all out of cereal. I said yes, of course. I hung up the phone. I start driving to the grocery store, and I thought to myself, what if I just didn't do it? After that, I turned the car around. I didn't go home. I ordered a VR headset off Amazon, and I started planning out how I would be spending 365 days in virtual reality. When the headset arrived, I had already planned out how my real-life responsibilities would be taken care of. I hired my friend to show up at work and do my job for me. I offered him the same wages that I was paid there, so that was no problem. I knew my wife would be fine with the kids, so that was a non-issue. And if anyone else in my life asked what happened to me, I told my friend to tell them he never went anywhere far from us. But we are very far away from him. After one last good meal and a trip to the restroom, I dove right into it. I put on my quest, and I said hello to my new home. For the first day, I just sat there, looking at the small, minimalistic hub that would be my house for a full year. For hours, I just looked around, memorizing every inch of the cozy environment. I tried to walk towards some of the furniture before hitting the boundary. That was a rude awakening to the fact that I wouldn't truly have the luxuries of real-life objects anymore. When you think about living in VR, you forget that you can't touch anything at all. It's virtual. It's not real. And that was definitely one of those things I had not thought of ahead of time. I was kind of sad at first, but it wasn't long until I remembered that I could just sit on the real-life couch beside me. As I lay on that real, physical object while falling asleep in VR, I couldn't help but feel comforted by what felt like a bridge from the real world to mine. I fell asleep happy, looking forward to all the crazy, unexpected adventures that I would purposely put myself in the following day. I woke up day 2 having slept pretty well. You don't realize just how much easier it is to rest when you don't have that idea in the back of your mind of, oh, you have people to say goodnight to, or people you have to look at and listen to about their day or else they'll get upset. In my small hut, there was no chance of my 2-year-old waking me up in the middle of the night, or my dog waking me up early to go outside. It's just me. That's it. I started the day with a hearty workout, using the boxing training game that I had downloaded the night before. I pushed myself for about 10 minutes, and went back to my cottage. I decided to try and move to another room in the real-life house so that I could connect to my computer, but this proved more difficult than I had expected. Without being able to take the headset off, it took me a long time to figure out how to navigate to the other room. I had planned on taking this day to explore an endless blocky world in Minecraft, but instead I ended up exploring a simple hallway in real life. When you can't see where it starts and where it ends, it too seemed like an endless world for me to explore. By the time I got to my new room and figured out how to connect my headset to my PC, day 2 was already over. I slowly developed my Minecraft world, going through the same excitement that any Minecraft adventure holds, making friends with animals, building my dream home, and exploring dark, scary caverns to find treasure. Finding my first ore was magical.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Oh, oh, no way.
It's funny how when you decide to live in VR and you rid yourself of any physical objects and physical pleasures of the real world, then these virtual goods hold so much more value to you. I was met with such pride at finding that ore. It was, from a certain point of view, my only possession of value. Day 4 is one I look back on with dread. It was the first day that I started really grasping just what it was I was doing with myself. My clothes started to stink, my forehead hurt from the pressing headset. I began to miss my family, and the motion sickness had finally begun to take its toll.
I miss my wife, my kids. I don't know what I'm doing.
At this point, I really had to face what I was doing. I was sick from the motion in the game. I was thinking about my family and my friends. My back hurt. Like a lot. Most of the day was spent staring out at the vast, possibility-filled world that I was given, wondering why I wanted so badly to return to my old home. And not the Rift Hub world, no, my real home, with the hardships that I left behind, all the stresses that I wanted so badly to get away from. Why did I desire so deeply to leave this worry-free space? Why did I want the real-world hardships back? After day 4, I came to the realization that I was acting like a big baby, so I sucked up my emotions and I decided to grow up. My life was Minecraft now. I was finally okay with that. For almost 40 days, my routine was waking up, heading out the door, and seeing what new adventure would meet me. I had grown very accustomed to it, and I was willing to spend the rest of my VR life here. I was really beginning to feel like I belonged in Minecraft, when on day 42, my friend taps me on the shoulder and he says, "Hey, you've been throwing up a ton, it stinks in here, please play something else, you moron." I think at that point, I really needed someone to say that to me. My friend had reminded me that there was still so much to explore in VR than just one game. And so I said goodbye to my Minecraft life and set forth for another one in Beat Saber to learn the art of music. I'd always wanted to learn an instrument in real life, and now I could finally do that without the interruptions of the real world. I started the game, chose the first song, and began what would be the greatest learning curve of my entire life. 40 days later, Beat Saber had taken over my brain. All my focus, all my emotion, all my value was based around these colored squares, and the only reward I felt as a human being was correctly swiping through them with my lightsabers. I had grown a lot in those 40 days, finally being able to beat songs on medium difficulty, and at the time, I felt like I had finally reached my potential in the game. When you play every Green Day song over 200 times, you get the feeling that you've learned all the game is going to teach you. So I moved on to another game. At this point, I was very proud of what I had accomplished in both games I've played, and I had come to terms with the idea of being alone and being away from my past life and the people who occupied it. But as any human would, there were still days where I felt extra lonely or just wished for a minute of interaction with another living being. So I decided next to venture into the world of Moss, a game that I was told could melt the heart of even a hardened killer. And in the days to come, I would say that's the greatest understatement of our modern times. My life in Minecraft and Beat Saber had brought me through the many ups and downs of adventure, challenge, risk, and reward, but all throughout they lacked the companionship that I found in my life playing through Moss. As I guided the main character through the mystical, danger-filled world, I felt like Quill and I grew very close to one another. With every puzzle we solved and high five we exchanged, I felt the humanity returning to my emotionless self. Now, Moss is a really short game. It took me maybe 3 hours to beat it on my first try, but by the 150th playthrough, I really started to feel a connection to this mouse character. It was a greater bond than probably anything I had formed in my past real life. Every time I would begin playing through the story again, Quill would meet me for the first time in that starting cutscene, forgetting all of what past memories we had made. But with each first encounter, I felt like deep down, she knew who I was. That somewhere, somehow, she had this deep memory of what we had gone through in the last playthrough. After some time, as I guided her time and time again through the dangers and hardships that the game threw at us, I took my role as her protector more and more seriously, and eventually cared for her as I did my own real-life daughter. Perhaps even more so. After a while, the day came where I felt like I had helped Quill as much as a father should. I taught her how to brave the dangers of this world to the best of my knowledge, and one day I just knew she would be fine without me. So I moved on to other games, I lived other lives. I never forgot the ones that I had lived, but with Minecraft and Beat Saber, I had always felt like staying alive was my top priority. Living on to see what the next adventure would be, what lied in store for me after each game. It was the most important thing to me through those games, and I had so much to live for, but things change after raising a child into the world. There was still a lot to explore, don't get me wrong, but I know the purpose of my life was to raise Quill to the best of my abilities, and with that being done, I didn't worry about what might happen to me anymore. And so, my life simply went on, in an almost worryless way. With my life's purpose complete, I simply drifted about from game to game, taking in experiences as that of a retired soldier, for the rest of my VR days. Finally, the day had come. It had been 1 year since I began my journey into a life of VR, and I felt like I had lived 1,000 lives within the course of only a fraction of time. It was time to finally take off the headset. I honestly was scared and a bit sad because I felt like I could have spent my whole life in VR. But I knew my time had come. For one thing, I had played through every game on the store probably around 100 times, seeing as they're so short. And I was spending around $400 a month on Google Drive storage to keep recording everything. It was time to face the real world again. And so I said my last goodbyes to my small hut and prepared to shut down the quest. When, as if the end of my journey had been known to the whole world, I get a timely phone call. Right as I'm taking my headset off, my wife calls me and says, "Where have you been?" I wasn't able to speak words because I hadn't spoken in like a year, so I could only make mumbling sounds. And she says, "Hey, where have you been for the past 5 days?" I hadn't spoken to anyone for a year, keep in mind. And I said, She said, "Yeah, you were supposed to pick up cereal like 5 days ago, and you just never came home." And I just sat there thinking to myself, I've been in VR for 365 days. I've been counting the time in my head since day one. I know it's been that long. And then it dawned on me, VR has to be the secret to time travel.